Good morning and welcome to Church Online. I know many of you were expecting that we would be at church today and are so disappointed that we weren't able to go due to the weather. But nonetheless, the weather won out. Mother Nature usually has a way of doing that sometimes. But I felt it was important for me to reach out to you today because there is a lot going on in the world. And I really wanted to have some time for people just to sit and chill and relax because these are difficult issues that we are all dealing with. And it's important to have time just to quiet the mind, think about something different, so that when we do go back to exploring these issues and grappling with these things, that we are in a good frame of mind to do that so that we can respond to it from a place of grace rather than from knee-jerk reactions to our own tiredness or frustration with the situations. So what I wanted to do was, because it's Christmas, I was going to read an intergenerational story. Now, I know that many of you probably thinking, well, I'm not really in the mood for a story, but trust me, I think you might enjoy this story because if you know me, I don't do anything just normal. Normal bores me, and I don't think normal is of Christ. So what we're going to do is I'm going to read you a story. So go get folks. I know that they're there. I hear them. Hello, come to the computer screen because we all have a story to hear. I'll wait. Or you can put me on hold and then wait and pick me up when you get everybody there. Go get your chocolate milk or whatever else you're going to have because this will take a few minutes. Hi, by now I guess you've managed to get people to come to the computer screen and you have gotten your snacks, your hot chocolate and whatever else you're going to have. And sit back for a few minutes while I read you this story. And this is a real book. Okay, it was read to me on Thanksgiving. So I have one neighbor, a colleague of mine to thank for this. The name of the story we're about to hear is Charlie the Flatulent Christmas Angel. And yes, this is a real book. Here it is. Okay, just so you know. And it's a story, yes, it's funny, and everybody likes to think and laugh about farts and things, but you know what? This is about more than that. This is about the gifts that God gives us. And sometimes I wonder about those gifts, but they're gifts nonetheless, and they bless the world. So we're going to hear about that now. Now, little one, it seems Christmas is here. Thanksgiving is over, and it's time for some cheer. Our sights are now set towards the end of December. The weather gets colder and helps us remember the songs of love and peace and joy. They play in the malls till they start to annoy. But they play in our hearts as well as our ears, and they take back our memories down through the years. To tree ornaments hanging and cookies then baking, hot chocolate mugs and grandmother's hugs for the taking. But do you smell that fragrance that floats around your head? Is it peppermint, pumpkin, or warm gingerbread? Is it hot chocolate or pine or some Christmassy smell? No, it's Charlie, the Flatulent Angel. All right, the poem isn't that great, the rhyme isn't that great. I'm just the messenger. Now, this story, it happened a long time ago when Charlie the shepherd boy trudged through the snow to find his lost lamb who had wandered alone. Poor little lamb must have been chilled to the bone. But Charlie was good and Charlie was kind. He often went off searching and he dreamed in his mind of the shepherds and stories he heard as a boy, of that first Christmas star and the angels of joy, and how shepherds brought lambs to the new baby king. It made Charlie wonder just what would he bring. Then he heard the soft bleat of his little lost friend who had slipped and fallen into the river's west end. and was washing away with a plaintive yoo-hoo. But Charlie the shepherd boy knew what to do. He reached out his hand to the little lost lamb and remembered again the Savior's good plan, to reach out to the lambs wherever they may be. But poor Charlie slipped and was washed out to sea. But God was smiling, as God always does, and God loved the shepherd for all that he was. God gave him a gift like no angel before, a gift that would ban him from stories of yore. But a gift nonetheless, a strange Christmas present. When Charlie broke wind, it would always smell pleasant. Then sent back to earth as an angel in training, Charlie bleated air biscuits that were most entertaining. Peppermint frosting and cinnamon buns, chocolate chip cookies, the warm gooey ones. I'm not going there. His backdoor breezes smelled like nuts and cranberries, and all who inhaled had Christmases merry. They'd walk around happy and not know the reason. Charlie had given them a whiff of the season. With his bean blower blowing with peppermint breezes, he floats round the world with his Christmas butt sneezes, bringing air joys to good girls and boys who smell holly berries as they run for their toys. But this story takes place long ago, when names of your neighbors were a good thing to know, before laptop computers and the vast internet, when a phone on the wall was the best you could get. In a city called Cleveland on the shores of Lake Erie, where despite all the cold, folks seemed to be pretty cheery. When despite their cold weather, folks seemed to be cheery at a home filled with orphans, with no moms and dads, no beds for these children, just some worn mattress pads. No kind daddy stories or no hugs from their mummies. Their cupboards were empty as the poor children's tummies. But in that cold place where there was so little to eat, the kids had a spirit that couldn't be beat. Each night after supper of rolled oats and bread, they would place a paper star on the top of the head of little Bethany Von Beaker, who was barely 5, but she sat on the shoulders of a big boy named Clive. The children would stand on some chairs and hold hands and make their own tree, the best in the land. They'd make their own ornaments out of bottle caps and string, and then those poor children would laugh and they'd sing of Bethlehem's gifts and the star's wondrous lights, and just before bed they would sing Silent Night. Silent Night was never silent, I don't think. I still have questions about that. Granted, I don't know anything about birth and babies, but from what I hear, I doubt Mary was quiet when she was giving birth to babies. If not, she was complaining to Joseph about the accommodations. Meanwhile, back to the story. And as they were singing with their eyes closed tight, they swore they smelled cookies and sugar delights. Some smelled pine branches, others smelled pie, and fragrances floating on the breezes blowing by. But there was one little thing the kids didn't know, and that was on Christmas Eve they'd be out in the snow. The lease was up on their ramshackled house, and soon they'd be fighting for crumbs with a mouse. The owner was one Mr. B. Fizzle Drake, who'd tear down the halls and the house and a high-rise he'd make. Kindness and love were not part of his plan, not when your home is owned by this man, who's so mean and rotten with snot in his soul. Why, he'd even laugh out loud if you fell into a hole. Now, just a few blocks down from the orphanage home lived a big-hearted Ben whose name was quite known, a newspaper reporter. Back when people read those, people were quite fond of his newspaper prose. And Ben had a dog named Roscoe Lee Brown, and at night they would walk all over town. But on this night, with Christmas just a few weeks away, Roscoe broke his leash and just ran away. But he was just running, or was he just chasing a scent? It was one of those cheek flappers the angel had spent. Charlie the angel wanted the dog loose, so he floated a wet one that smelled of cooked goose. So Roscoe, he ran, and the reporter ran after, and they ran till they stopped at the sound of kids' laughter from inside the ramshackle house falling down. You don't hear much laughter from that side of town. From inside the wall, Ben and Roscoe could hear sweet voices in songs raised in Christmassy cheer. It wasn't just music that made them both stop and stare. Ben caught a whiff of gingerbread air. Some music like angels these children were singing, completely unaware of the joy they were bringing. Now Ben knew this house belonged to B. Fizzle Drake, who apparently cared nothing for the children at stake. Why, before the new year it was cleared for demolition. We can't let Drake's plans come to fruition. But what could he do? You can't fight City Hall, not with a dog and children so small. You can't change the mind of a heart set in stone, or stand in front of a bulldozer alone. You can move the hearts of newspaper readers who might call the mayor or their council type seekers. But B. Fizzle Drake, he owned half the city. You can't pay the rent with just a handful of pity. You could pay the rent with hard, cold cash. Ben needed a plan that would be daring and bold. These kids needed money, and they needed it fast. Now, where could a reporter get that kind of cash? Then on the wind that smelled just like eggnog, Ben found a flyer in the mouth of his dog. It said that on Christmas there was a big talent show, and the kids could sing on live radio. They could win big contests and take the grand prize and put in front of Drake's beady eyes. Ben could save these poor orphans. He'd put them on stage. But what if they lost out to B. Fizzle's rage? It was a chance he'd have to take, and he knocked at the door and sat with the kids who sat on the floor. He told them the plan to save their poor home, to win the prize money and pay off the loan. They'd practiced for days by the warmth of the fire, their sweet little voices raised up to inspire. Oh, the stories he'd write for the readership huge. They'd vote for the children, they'd vote out the Scrooge. But would that be enough, he thought? Doubting his writing, could his words be the cause of the city uniting? Just above Ben, floating over the city air, and over his right shoulder was the cheese-cutting angel who just popped the boulder and filled the whole room with the sweet scent of cocoa. Now the children would never be tossed out into the snow, not when the flatulent angel is there, and Roscoe the dog, and the children's good cheer. But Ben was just one reporter, and they were just kids. What would keep them all from hitting the skids? None of them knew about their angel above, whose blaring bum trumpet was a sign of God's love. And so the orphans all gathered on a cold Christmas Eve inside the station to earn their reprieve. The reporter's kind words would show people cared, and then the sign lit up read, "Shh, on the air." The kids closed their eyes and opened their hearts and sang pitch-perfect notes in harmony parts. The songs they sang went out over the city, and the people looked up from the streets dark and gritty, and heard the sweet voices raised in beautiful song, like choirs of angel in a heavenly throng. It was enough to make them move to their phones and call in their votes for this group of the gnomes. The children went, oops, we missed the page. Now, just outside the radio station was the toot-scootin' angel whose angelic flotation carried him into the cold air, a cold Cleveland sky, above the whole city and the skyscrapers high. He clenched his whole body and his cheeks clapped tight, and he blew his bum trumpet and shot off in the night. With his buttocks bassoon he blew sense of pure joy to all the grown-ups and the girls and boys. They smelled the Christmas that made their hearts light, of candy and cookies and gadgets delight, of turkey and biscuits and hot Christmas punch, of cranberries and oranges and caramel corn crunch, and of those cookies with the chocolate kiss in the middle, all from the bun of one angelic presenter. Across the whole city they smelled hot cinnamon scones. The people stood up one by one and ran for their phones to vote for these children and their anthems so sweet, while smelling hot chocolate and good things to eat. They weren't even aware why they moved to their phones. It was more than the paper and the children's sweet tones. It was the work of an angel, and his Christmassy cloud, his moon gas, his mud duck, his fluffy out loud. Why, if it wasn't for Charlie and his sweet sphincter song, the whole Christmas contest might have gone horribly wrong. Instead, when the numbers were finally tallied, the children had won, and their fans, they had rallied to not only give them the prize money won, but to see that their Christmas was second to none. And the children went home, and to their surprise, they found a crowd waiting with tools and supplies. The people had fixed up their house and cooked for them too, and one lady even adopted a few. But what of Befizzle Drake? His plans were now thwarted. He got his own present, so the paper reported, wrapped up in paper and a tag laminated. And there, what was in the box? Well, I think Roscoe made it. And Charlie the angel, who tooted with cheer, went back into heaven until Christmas next year. So when you gather round with your loved ones this season and you smell those sweet smells, but you don't know the reason, you can be sure that Charlie is near, popping a fluffy of sweet Christmas cheer. Now you all have a good day. God bless.